Thanks for joining us for another Take Two edition as we head into the election. We are just 2 weeks out, exactly 2 weeks before the election. Joining me right now is Mike Kennedy. Thanks so much for being with us. We're looking at our congressional races down to the wire. Tell me what your days are like right now when you've got 2 weeks to go.
Yeah, I was just at the Capitol earlier today, and we had an opportunity to have meetings about the One Utah Health Collaborative that the governor is working on with others. Being a family doctor and an attorney, obviously the family doctor component I'm constantly brought into the healthcare debates that the state legislature has. But it's a great opportunity to meet the good people in this state and collaborate about the future that we have. So there's that, and obviously constant campaign efforts. We have events this afternoon and evening associated with the campaign, and we'll just keep going until 2 weeks elapses, and then we can get to work for the good people of Utah.
I want to talk about some of the other issues that are affecting people, but healthcare on the mind today, since you were up at the Capitol talking about that with the legislature. You are a family practice doctor, having to give that up if you win in Congress. Health is such an important thing when you look at the economy and how well people are doing at work, at home, all these different things. Our country spends a lot of money on healthcare, on insurance, on pharmaceuticals, but when you look at how we're doing health-wise compared to other countries, that money doesn't seem to be paying off. Is there a better way that you see that maybe Congress could make some changes that we could get Americans healthier and on the right path?
Absolutely. We also spend a lot of money pushing our health in the wrong direction. Not you look like you take great care of yourself, but the reality for a lot of people, if we talk about alcohol, cigarettes, and then a variety of components of the food and drink industry, is people are contributing to their own issues, and then healthcare, whether it be private insurance, work-sponsored insurance, or Medicaid and Medicare government-sponsored insurance, we're trying to dig people out from the holes that they've dug for themselves because of the variety of items that we have available for us. So yes, there's a great opportunity in Congress for us to target policies that will enhance people in their preventative care aspects, which is what I'm always looking for. How can I help the 20 and 30-year-olds so that at 80 and 90 years old, they're doing better than they are, and a lot of that's good, healthy choices. But then, yes, we all need surgeries here and there. We need medicines at some points, and the healthcare industry is full of opportunity there as well to innovate so that we can actually save money and deliver good quality healthcare.
President Trump has said that if he won, that he would take RFK Jr. and maybe let him loose on the CDC or the FDA. Do you think that someone could go in there and quote unquote clean up these agencies and maybe make some different regulations nationally that would trickle down to helping families eat healthier, make better choices? I
look forward to those conversations. It's a team sport working in the legislature, and there are a lot of influences. Recognizing that these influences have been working in their areas for many decades, in fact, as a freshman legislator, if the good people of Utah are willing to select me, I want to work diligently on a regular basis to contribute to high quality health care for lower costs than what we're currently doing. And RFK Jr. has some very interesting ideas. Of course,
good interesting or bad interesting?
Oh, I think interesting in the form of lots of really interesting conversations that I think this country should have. But when it comes to that, I want to engage and try to make things better. And if the people select Donald Trump, I think we'll see a lot of really interesting debates about what we should be doing regarding healthcare.
Let's talk economy. I think that's the number one thing that's affecting families here in Utah. We keep seeing numbers that come out nationally that says, you know, the economy's still chugging along and it's doing well. But I saw a report yesterday that maybe the economy's doing well because the upper echelon, people with a little more money, are keeping it going. But a lot of those middle class and lower class families are not doing well. They're having a hard time paying rent or the mortgage or the groceries. What do you see when you're talking to Utahns that needs to be fixed, and what can you do in Congress to change that?
The government needs to get out of the way of the small businesses. I'm a small business owner. The economic driver of our economy are small businesses, and I constantly have increased costs in the form of my excellent staff, but also the things that I need to buy to take care of the health care of my individuals, my patients that I see. But regulations continue to increase my costs, making our margins lower and lower. We're doing fine on the doctor side, and it's a privilege to be a doctor, and if the people select me to be a legislator. One of the big issues is government regulations. The second is government spending that's out of control. It's been out of control for long before many of us even started thinking about these things, and we need to rein in government spending because the COVID blowout spending that we've done, that actually has increased inflation. We remember Jerome Powell a few years ago was saying transitory inflation. Well, we're still struggling with the inflationary trends that were actually set up during these COVID spending blowouts that the Biden administration continues to foist on our society. And so I'm interested in, for the national debt and reducing spending so that we can actually improve the economy.
How do we realistically do that? Because I talk to Republicans and Democrats, both as they run, who say we've got to get a hold of this, we've got to make a change. You get to Congress and making that change isn't easy because people are set in their ways and everyone likes to spend money on their pet projects. So how do you back that off? Because we're talking about trillions and trillions of dollars that Americans don't have. The Utah legislature spends in a far different way than we see Congress spend.
It's true. I live on a budget. The state legislature lives on a budget. You live on a budget. Those that are listening live on a budget. Our federal government should live on a budget. The reality is we've been putting on the credit cards of our grandchildren the spending of today, and we have to stop that. How do we make that happen? I'm one of many voices. If the people of Utah are going to select me, there's 435 representatives, 100 senators, and a president of the United States. We have to work together on this, and we need a critical mass of legislators that are just willing to say no. Actually, I'm just planning on not voting for these omnibus budget bills, these irresponsible spending patterns that we have. I'll just say no, and I'll do it with a smile on my face because I want Washington, D.C. to be more like Utah, not Utah to be like Washington, D.C.
Those decisions, when they come down to it, are difficult to make. When we look at the last vote that came that was at the deadline, a continuing resolution passed. They have till December 20th, and that'll probably get kicked down to the new Congress.
Right.
And we saw Senator Mike Lee, who often votes against these on the principle of just not voting for these omnibus spending. But a lot of our other congressional leaders end up voting for it because they don't want to see the government shut down. So how do you make that decision without shutting down the government and also making a change where you can start voting for the bills as they come up piece by piece?
I do not want to see the government shut down either. I don't think that that's functional. It particularly is not good for Republicans. But when it comes to this, my children that want to, I have 8 children. I know what shenanigans look like. As a father of 8 children, working with my wife, raising those children, most of whom are out of the house now, is when they want to eat ice cream every night for dinner, I just say no. And I do it with a smile on my face. We don't have to get red-faced with spittle flying out of our mouths about this. But if we don't get a handle on our spending process and our national debt, this country will confront critical issues that we continue to kick down the road, hoping that something different is going to happen. But as a legislator who's done this for 10 years in the state of Utah, as somebody who loves Utah and the way that we approach things, Democrat and Republican, we work together on these things. There is a way to build a coalition and collaboration because I've not met anybody yet that doesn't care about our future, the future of our country, the future of our grandchildren. So I'm focused on that considering I have 9 grandchildren as well. They want me to make sure that I'm doing these things in the right way so that they're not left with messes that we could have dealt with today.
Speaking of messes, a lot of COVID spending happened, but we're also talking about big chunks of money right now that are not just staying here in the U.S. Well, we're talking about FEMA spending. We're also looking at big spending right now for Ukraine and Israel, both very different issues. If you're elected to Congress, how do you go about deciding whether more money goes to those countries and if they need it? Because at this point, the U.S. has become kind of the policing superpower of the world. But a lot of people and Americans, Utahns at home are asking, at what cost can we afford it?
At what cost of our own border? So we're working on security issues in Ukraine and Israel at the same point that the Biden and Kamala Harris administration have failed to protect our own border. We don't even know who's coming across our border, which frankly is shocking to me. So I'm focused on United States security, particularly border protection, and making sure that we want people to come here, that the people that are coming here illegally, we need to make sure it's easier to come here legally, but our own border needs to be protected. When it comes to Ukraine, and in this case Israel, the reality is when Joe Biden decided to abandon Afghanistan in a feckless and irresponsible fashion, it sent a message to dictators all over the world that they could be on the march, that it was time, because our president of the United States was asleep at the switch, for people to go ahead and take moves. And as a result of that, we see Xi Jinping just last week practicing enclosures on Taiwan. We see the fact that we've got a war in Israel as well as a war in Ukraine. And I want the United States of America to speak softly and carry a big stick. That's a classic statement from Teddy Roosevelt many years ago, is we need to be strong. When we are strong, that's preventative measures for the security of the world.
Does that mean continued spending Ukraine to make sure that they finish what they've started there, or how do you vote on that?
My question is, why is it we need to send any money to Ukraine when we have all the resources that we could sell to them, and if they can't pay for it, we should seize Russian assets to pay for those things. When it comes to Israel, our best ally in the Middle East, They have been that way for generations, and I stand strongly with Israel, and I want to help and support them. But in neither case, with Ukraine or Israel, should we send our soldiers, our young men and young women. This is not a national security issue for us directly, and we will not send people. But we can sell all the resources necessary, enhancing our economy at the same time that we enhance their security.
Back to the U.S.-Mexico border, what is the right step forward? The Biden-Harris administration will tell you they offered up a bill in Congress. They believe that Trump sidelined that bill. Is it a bill that you would have voted for if you were there and it had been offered up to the House? It never made it out of the Senate.
I don't vote in favor of any bill I've never read. So in that case, I've not read that bill. I heard the media talk about what that bill was. I am a big fan of legal immigration. My father is a naturalized American citizen. He came here legally and became naturalized, and I'm proud to be a first-generation American on my father's side. My family and I have lived the American dream. The fact that we could start as immigrants, my father could start as an immigrant marrying my mother and raising his family here in the United States of America on a legal basis and then becoming naturalized. And I remember that ceremony when my father did that. I was so proud of my dad. Actually, Ronald Reagan conducted that ceremony as a little kid. I remember being really impressed how important this thing was. And here his son is standing as a candidate for United States Congress. I'm so honored to live the American dream. We need to make legal immigration more feasible and easier than illegal immigration. And I believe securing our border first and making legal immigration easier is definitely possible. It's just a matter of, can I build a coalition and a consensus with my legislative colleagues to make these things happen.
Speaking of the American dream, I think that's a difficult one for families that are younger right now thinking about building a home. And then we have many older families that depend on Social Security or have been paying into it for a lifetime and know that it possibly won't be there. 10 years from now, we know that it's not going to have the same funds. They're going to have to cut by about 25% or change that retirement age. What does Congress need to do right now to secure that money so that families have what they've been counting on for decades?
First, we keep the promises that we've made. There are many people, and I'm 55 years old, if somebody has had promises made and they've made their entire financial plans through the course of their lives on the promises of Social Security and Medicare, that we need to keep those promises. But my children are exactly the people that you're talking about. In the state of Utah, my children cannot afford to buy a house here in this state, one of whom has taken out multiple loans to be a medical student and subsequently become a doctor. So many of these people come out of school with massive loans, and then they're looking at $400,000 or $500,000 for a starter home in the state of Utah. It's a massive issue. A big part of that is government spending. Once again, inflationary trends. The items that it takes to build a house, they're more expensive now than they've ever been. We go to the grocery store, people are having to put on credit cards, basic expenditures at the grocery store. And a big part of that is government spending. So rein in government spending, enhance the economy, reduce regulatory burdens. That grows the pie for everyone, reducing the cost of these items. And when it comes to taxes and burdens on these lumber or building materials for a house, we need to reduce those so that people can actually buy a house here in this country generally and the state of Utah specifically.
The Biden administration has wanted to pay off debt for people like your son, possibly that has a lot of money after going into school for debt, to be a doctor. Is that the right way to do it, to help these families where maybe you just forgive that money or have the government cover the cost?
It's actually my daughter.
Okay.
That's really interesting you bring that up, because for her, she went to school and got an education. Why on earth should people that didn't get that same education pay for her education? There are already massive amounts of grants available for people, as well as low interest loans. And when I took those loans out myself to go to medical school, and I paid for law school with cash, I paid for my own education and I paid off those debts. Those were massive debts for me, but we were able to, my wife and I, raise our family and also pay off those debts. And a big part of it, I believe in a hand up, but not a hand out. We need to expect things of people, and when these young people take out loans to go to school, they should pay those loans back. The Biden administration wants to give away everything to everybody and frankly pander and buy votes every chance that they get. I think it's a terrible approach. It's irresponsible, and I will not support those kind of efforts in Congress.
For people who don't know a lot about you, and maybe this is the first time they're sitting down or listening to you right now, what else do they need to know about you before they go and fill out those ballots?
I love the state of Utah. I'm a transplant. I came here for school at Brigham Young University and found a place that I wanted to raise my family. So my wife and I, after our educational pursuits throughout the country, actually we lived in several different places, we came back here because we knew it was a great place to raise a family. Ultimately ran for the state legislature and have served there for 10 years. It's been my privilege to see the power of the people of Utah as affected through our state legislature, these are good people. They want to pay off their debts. They want to live within their means. They'll take $1 and stretch it to $5 worth of value. I get excited about that because I see the Olympics. We all see the Olympics coming in 10 years. The Olympics are going to be a massive opportunity yet again to even do better than we did last time, to showcase Utah to the whole world. We do it the right way. We work together. I vote with my Democrat colleagues on a regular basis in the state legislature, and we work together, and when we vote against each other's bills, we do so respectfully, and I appreciate that. I do better when I have more ideas on the table, and working with my patients has been a real privilege. I've recognized there's a lot of smart, good people out there, and they don't have to have fancy degrees or fancy positions to teach me the things that I need to know so that I can serve them well if they're willing to select me for this position.
And if people want to talk to you or learn more about you before the election, where do they go?
MikeKennedyforUtah.com is our website. We'd love you to go there and learn more about this candidacy. We would be honored to have their support. It's 2 weeks from the election at this point, and we are fighting vigorously to market ourselves to the good people of Utah and hope that they'll select Mike Kennedy for the next congressman.
Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll continue these conversations with the candidates right up until Election Day.